and ask of you to address the country through you on a few issues. The campaigns by the end of this week would have run for the third week. And we can all tell the lukewarm nature of the campaign. We may not blame anybody for it. Probably the citizenry preferred that it is as what it is. As we go over it in the coming days, weeks, probably months, we shall have a better understanding of what it heralds for posterity. At the DF, in our last address to the country, immediately after the DF National Council, we informed the country that we shall not present a presidential candidate. And we offered the resolutions of the party, and today we will have to re-echo that for the benefit of those who either never listened or store in the short-term memory. Otherwise, we were very unequivocal in what we said, and our reasons were not difficult to understand. It's very important to note that we are barely, at the end of this month, we will be 4 months old as a party. That does not qualify us as infants. We are not political babies. We are only doing our part in a short time to impact, influence, and change the way politics is done in this country. And we are committed to just doing that with a consistency never seen before. We will share after this address a major document highlighting what DF is. Probably when we share it and the reasons for our choices in this electoral season, it will be to give us an opportunity to be well represented in public spaces wherever issues DF arise. You are aware that the DF as a party is explicitly rooted in social democratic worldviews and espouses a commitment to build an all-inclusive society, progressive in nature, with equity and social justice. We have been explaining that the DF is a party of transformative ideals, the nature of ideals that speak to progress, redistribution of wealth in the country, empowerment of communities, benefits for everyone in the community, and most importantly, a party that regards gender equity, ethnic equity, social justice, and political justice as key elements of our ideological orientation. If you want to know us better, we are a social democratic party. Call us center-left if you understand how ideologies are oriented. You get to understand us. There are parties in this country that are for every ideology and then practice none. So, but we want to be very clear. Made us, patronized us as a people, and as a result, inequality and injustice have become a sine qua non in our spaces. We stand for dialogue, we stand for reconciliation, we stand for solidarity and collective action above narrow partisan struggles. It's the reason why, from the onset, when we were still an alliance called DA, we articulated our desire to reforms, to the transition, and to reconciliation. And because these three very important elements of our presence in the public space required legislative reforms that never saw the light of day, as a party, I must say, we suffered frustration because we thought it was very vivid and easy for everybody to see. We stepped aside to look and admire those with courage that will carry on the quest for change in this country, especially our Ivorian colleagues in the opposition, who received the need for reforms with a lukewarm kind of reception. And then we say that the DF, let's play our part humbly, probably history will judge us right. We agreed that, we resolved at the National Council that the DF, aware of our geological orientation, would participate in parliamentary and local government elections. And we gave our reasons. I want to echo them here today so that nobody misrepresents us. Why the DF declined to participate in the presidential elections? Very important to understand that. The DF leaders, in the period leading to the kickoff of the nominations for the 2026 general elections, focused on putting the reform and transition debate at the center of the national political conversation. If you remember, in June 2023, then as leader of the opposition, I invited the entire opposition in a retreat for 2 days in Munyonyo. And to my recollection, almost every leader of an opposition party and key opposition leaders attended that retreat in Munyonyo, in which our focus was to push for electoral and constitutional reforms. And whereas my former party eventually outed a document that downplayed that effort of 2 days, I went ahead because I believed and drafted 8 bills that I filed with the Office of the Speaker and the Clerk of Parliament. And those bills spoke to a plethora of reforms, electoral reforms and constitutional reforms. The nature of constitutional reforms we desired would then cascade into a plethora of other legislations, electoral and transitional. So we missed an opportunity. Under the DF, the leaders focused on those reforms and they caused the publication of those proposals of the national transition and reforms. And the DF leaders, if you remember, moved around different political parties with you, the media, to try and impress it upon our comrades in the struggle, to realize the need for us to work together on these reforms. We also reached out on religious leaders, some cultural institutions and development partners in that road-based clarion call to try and make reforms matter before the current election. Of course, as you remember, those who moved with us, a few of them exhibited care and interest on these reforms, and some of them never cared at all or even respond, which is why at the DF we believe that frustrating reforms was a conspiracy, and we are enumerating the conspirators who will make the world know where the conspirators were at the end of this election. Because at the end of the day, the whole electoral process is littered with frustrations. And I'm very sure even the conspirators realize that their game is actually falling flat. So we lost an opportunity, and those who did frustrate our reforms, be informed that we are around, and we shall be around for some time. You can tell from the prevailing conditions and nature of the general election in Uganda that the DF foresaw that at the end of the day we are all going to be frustrated. If the intention was frustrate the DF and its purpose, then all of us sowed the wrong seed and we are harvesting the wrong crop. At the DF National Council that sat a month ago, we did conclude that, notwithstanding Uganda's biased and partisan electoral commission, elections held under the NRM regime since 1996 have similar characteristics. Let me give you an example about the nature of the EC. Our candidate for the district chairperson of Ngora was frustrated and not nominated. The law says you make an appeal in not more than 7 days. The gentleman made an appeal to the Electoral Commission in Kampala. Up to now, there's no response. And he's here, he can tell you. That was our candidate. So, when you talk about the Electoral Commission being irresponsible and negligent and incompetent, wherever you see him, you read the incompetence of the EC. Read the inertia. Not even red tape, it's sheer incompetence. So, but we said, look, these elections have similar features. The gerrymandering we all know, and we know how it is done. We said we are not going to rest on our laurels because of the frustration, but we shall find a framework to participate. So the DF National Council resolved that we shall not participate in the general elections because of the failure to have the wide-ranging reforms. But instead, we shall participate in all government elections and parliament. Namely, that in parliament, that's where our agenda for reforms is going to be restarted. Local governments, that's where the change we desire, including mindset change, including some of the reforms, the legal reforms, shall rest and vest in local governments at some stage. Therefore, we must have leaders with conviction and competence to push the agenda for reforms, the transition, and reconciliation. Why reforms? We all know. Why constitutional reforms? Why electoral reforms? We all know that we are faced with a situation where nobody knows where we are going, and we are in the middle of a forest in the dark. Therefore, reforms are the big light atop us that we need to clearly inform our sense of direction. Why the transition? The biggest failure of our independence, as we all know it, is the failure to transition from one leader to another. Every electoral cycle, the outgoing is the incoming. That only happens in societies that are stuck with themselves. And therefore, for us to be able to have a departure from that state of failure, legal reforms are inevitable. And there's no amount of electioneering that will change the situation of an outgoing being the incoming. And that frustrates immensely. So we want to use the next parliament by attempting to populate it with politically oriented, ideologically oriented citizens, leaders that will speak to each other, speak to others, speak to communities, and influence the next stage of our politics. That's why we said we need parliament. And in our humble way, we have been and we're still identifying men and women of valor across the country to be part of our reform agenda to populate parliament in a manner that we'll be able to manage it and make that humble difference. We don't need to have a forest in parliament. We only need to have serious men and women that will speak to community and no longer speaking. The wrong people are talking, speaking gibberish, making no sense. And as such, we are saying there is a need, an urgent need, to occupy that honorable space with serious leaders that we can speak to this country. And of course, our participation in local government elections, like I said, They're very important because they also speak to our deep ideological presence that is a bottom-up, not a top-bottom. We all know that part of the governance failure in this country is centralization. Unfortunately, some people still think that we are running decentralization. Centralization has killed service delivery. Public servants are frustrated. They are being accused of failure to deliver services. Yet they have no power. They have no resources. So we want to populate local governments with leaders that will speak to the communities. And in the process, we will be able to impress it upon the communities to make demands for a bottom-up system as opposed to the current and the congested, a fossil-like top-bottom, top-heavy, and dysfunctional down. So that system needs to be dismantled, and we must begin with leaders that will speak to the man and woman in the countryside situation to understand why we made that decision, but also to understand why we did not endorse, and we have never endorsed any presidential candidate. Okay? We are not into a musical show that we are endorsing musicians. We are endorsement is a serious matter. It must be ideologically informed, not out of excitement. So the DF still holds on to the decision of the National Council that sat and resolved a month ago. Nothing has changed. Thank you. There are a number of issues we are resolving with candidates, trying to disentangle a few areas. We do not have conflicted areas at the DF. Where we have more than one, we've been able to resolve the matters amicably. And after nominations, we shall out a program that will take us in every space in this country to canvass for our candidates, both at parliament and local government level, but also have an opportunity to speak to the citizens across the country. When that program is done, the office of the organizing secretary is undertaking that. Our candidates will be supported by the team from the center, and they will speak to the issues broadly on reforms, on the transition, and reconciliation, because those are the issues that the DF is taking to the people. We have been listening to candidates across the campaign trail at the presidency, and all of them want to occupy State House. Very few, if any, are speaking to the real issues that matter at this stage. And we are coming. We shall do the education to the communities. Hopefully, they will understand what they missed by having this election convoluted and not able to speak to the issues that matter in this country. So, immediately, the Electoral Commission flags off the campaigns, probably in 2 weeks' time. We'll be on the campaign trail as the DF team in every corner of this country. Thank you. Twagala okwebaza okujja